Good evening, everybody. I'm Deepa from Child Survival India. I know it's been a long day, and I think computer has also started getting tired and it's acting. So I just hope that we are able to carry it forward. It's an empty room now, more or less, if we compare it to the morning. Hopefully, they should come back. So, Child Survival India, it's a not-for-profit organization based in Delhi. We have a footprint now in Delhi, Haryana, Punjab, Chandigarh, and UP. And we work mainly on maternal and child health issues and also on HIV. We work on HIV prevention with the high-risk groups of sex workers, truckers, and men having sex with men. And we also work on care and support for people living with HIV. And it includes children living with HIV. We run community care centers for them. But today, I'll be focusing on our maternal and child health program. We start with the story of Rohini. Rohini is from Sanjay Colony slum in Delhi. Sanjay Colony is an irregular shanty at the outskirts of Delhi. She was born to a young couple, a poor young couple in this colony. The mother was very weak and she gave birth to Rohini at home. And she was a premature baby, low birth weight. And because the mother was very weak, so she could not breastfeed the child and the child was put on top feed. And because of the top feed, she kept on having one or the other infection. And at 8 months of age, Rohini died. She could not even celebrate her first birthday. And Rohini is not the only one. We have 46 out of every 1,000 babies born alive in India dying before their first birthday. And it's not only that. If we look into our infant mortality, out of the 46 infants that die within the first year, 32 of them die within first month. In fact, if we look into our Indian situation, we have 4 lakh newborns dying every day within the first 24 hours of their birth. And by the time they reach 5 years, we have 63 of them dying. If we compare where we are to the Millennium Development Goals, our Millennium Development Goal to be reached by 2015 is 27, and we are at 46. We are much lagging behind. And when we look into the maternal mortality, the situation is as dire there also. We have 212 maternal deaths per 1 lakh live births. We have 1 woman dying every 10 minutes in our country due to pregnancy-related complications. This means 150 women dying every day. And if we see the Millennium Development Goal for maternal mortality for reducing and improving the maternal health, it is 109 to be reached by 2015. We can again see we are much lagging behind on that. But why do we have such a high infant mortality and maternal mortality? If we dig into the factors behind it, we realize that basic things like exclusive breastfeeding for the first 6 months, primary vaccination, which we all take for granted that every child in our family would be getting, more than 50% of infants in our country are not getting exclusive breastfeeding. They're not receiving primary vaccination, and more than almost 20% are born low birth weight. And as explained in the case of Rohini, they are born low birth weight because the mothers are weak. If we dig into the reasons behind maternal mortality, we again realize that more than 50% women are anemic, they have home deliveries, and they do not have recommended 3 antenatal checkups. And if we see all these reasons, these are very basic home care practices or health-seeking behavior which can be improved. And if we know that maternal mortality also has a direct impact on infant mortality. If we have such a high maternal mortality, it in a way leads to infant mortality. Research has shown that if a baby loses the mother within the first 6 weeks of life, the child is likely to die within the first 2 years as compared to a child whose mother survives. We've seen the indicators at the national level. I now want to focus on the urban poor situation. We all have this general idea that the urban situation is better than the rural situation. But I'm presenting before you some data that will point out to you that if we disaggregate the data for the urban situation into urban poor and urban non-poor, we realize that the urban poor indicators are much closer to the rural situation. And all the time, we have large government programs like National Rural Health Mission. Everything is all the policies and the schemes are mainly for the rural situation because we feel that the remote areas, they are remote, they don't have facilities, so we need to work for them. But we are realizing that the urban poor situation is much worse and it's comparable to the rural situation. So Child Survival India is focusing on the urban poor health situation. And that is why our mission is to enhance the community's knowledge, skills, capacities, and their access to health services, which will result in informed demand for quality healthcare and improved health-seeking behavior, which in turn would lead to better quality of life for women, children, families in the rural as well as urban settlements, and it will lead to improved health status for all. But then how do we do it? Child Survival India's approach is continuum of care approach, and continuum of care approach has two dimensions. We're talking about maternal, newborn, and child health continuum of care and home to hospital continuum of care. What do we mean by maternal, newborn, and child health continuum? We are talking about starting right from the beginning and integrating care throughout the life cycle. That is, if we start working with the adolescent, girls and boys, and start counseling them on basic things like age of marriage, age of pregnancy, their own nutrition, spacing the families, having safe sex, having safe abortions, that all in itself would lead to their getting pregnant at the right age and having a wanted child. They'll have a wanted child at the right age. And if similarly the care is taken during the pregnancy and the mother takes care of her own nutrition and she gets all the recommended ANC checkups, it will lead to better outcomes at the time of birth. If there is skilled attendant at the time of birth, it will lead to better postnatal outcomes for the mother as well as the child. So Child Survival India basically has a continuum of care approach which moves on from adolescent to pregnancy to birth to the postnatal period, going on to the infancy and childhood. And then we're also talking about another continuum, that is home to hospital continuum of care. If we take care of the home care practices, if there is a trained health worker in the community to link the women with the local health facility and also provide referral to the hospital facility, then there is a seamless continuum of care for the mother and it will definitely lead to the better outcomes. How do we do that? Our strategy for that is to work through the community-based groups. We have women's Swasthya Samoos, we have adolescent and youth groups, and we have mothers group. These women's Swasthya Samoos, they are mobilized for every 200 to 250 houses depending upon the population of the area. And then the members of these groups are trained on key maternal and child health messages. These women who are part of these mothers group then keep track of all the pregnant women and the infants in their area. And they also act as a referral point and link them up with the health facilities and at times even provide them accompanied referrals. So that is how a Swasthya Samoo works. Then we also have these adolescent groups, and we not only worked with the girls, we also work with the adolescent boys. And the issues that we take up in our adolescent meetings are basically on gender differences, which Dr. Sharda has clearly mentioned that the sensitivity has to come at that age. And then we work on things like menstrual hygiene, age of marriage, pregnancy, and prevention and management of anemia and Planned Parenthood. We also have mothers group. We do growth monitoring of all the infants in the 0 to 2 years age group and all the infants who are diagnosed as malnourished based upon the weight for age. Then we form the mothers group of the mothers of those malnourished infants and do regular monthly meetings with those mothers. It is like an intensive counseling sessions where they're given tips on things like importance of nutrition for the child, which has to be energy dense meal, frequent meals, exclusive breastfeeding, and also making them aware that the child is already weak and malnourished and the child has to be protected from further infections. Because if a child gets any infection at that stage and falls sick, he or she will further become malnourished. So we work through these kind of community groups. And what is our operating model? We get into a low-income community, which is selected based upon the income poverty mapping. Then we develop a basic assessment of the knowledge, attitude, and practices on the maternal and child health issues. We mobilize, train, and empower our Swasthya Samoos, the adolescent groups, and the mothers group. These are the groups then who in turn engage with the community and create an informed demand in the community, closely track all the pregnant women and the infants. And we also develop an institutionalized system of referrals. Because Child Survival India does not work on the service delivery, we basically link them up with the existing public health system. So what the Swasthya Samoo members do is basically to motivate all these women to take help from the local health center, get themselves registered in the hospital for the institutional delivery. And then we also try and facilitate community managed and community owned solutions. For example, for the transportation, we have developed a system of emergency transportation through a van, which is called the Suraksha van, and the number of that van is popularized in the Swasthya Samuh meetings. So at the time of delivery, at the time of labor, everybody in the family and the woman herself knows which is the number that she can call, and she can get help for the transportation, because many times the reason for not going to the hospital is that they don't find any transportation, and the transportation that they find is asking for exploitative rates. So they feel that it's better to have a child at home and pay 500 rupees to the midwife rather than to pay 600 or 700 rupees for transportation and then go to the hospital. So what has been done in this case of these emergency transportation van is that rate negotiation with these people has been done by the community leaders, and then this van is always available at the time of labor, and people keep track of it, and the number is there on the wall paintings in the community all around, and also all the Swasthya Samuh members know about it. What has happened is, once the Swasthya Samuh is formed, in the initial period, the focus is on mobilizing the women and then building up their capacities. It is more on knowledge, and then they become disseminators of this knowledge. But when the next stage is that we train these Swasthya Samuh women as social leaders and to do advocacy on health rights. So once these women, they're mobilized into groups, they've been given training on writing applications under the Right to Information Act, and then they keep track of the health facilities in their area, and now they are demanding quality health services. For example, if they have a health center and it does not keep stock of medicine, and whenever the women are going and they are being told that the medicines are out of stock, they've used Right to Information Act to find out about the stock of medicines that's brought in, and then what is the method, how the further order is given every time, and how does a stock out situation happens. In one case, they had a health center in the area, but there was no female doctor. So these women then wrote to the district medical officer and kept on putting application regarding what is the staffing structure, and what are the kind of services this health center is supposed to provide, and if the health center is supposed to provide the antenatal care checkups, why they do not have a female doctor. What happened was that they did not get a full-time female doctor, but a female doctor started coming there on alternate day basis. So this is how they're now ensuring the accountability of the health system and using Right to Information Act. So these Swasthya Samuhs are not only the women who are disseminating information in the community, they're also taking accountability from the health system. If we get into the number of lives touched, in 2012, we are reaching out to 12 slum communities. 4,500 pregnant women provided care in 1 year across 1.75 lakh population. We get into the impact of the program. We are seeing a significant change in the home care practices and in the uptake of services. We can see that the antenatal care, 93% of the women are now going in for antenatal care checkups. Institutional delivery rate has gone up, but it still needs to be worked upon. And if we see the exclusive breastfeeding, that has also gone high. This was an independent study done by Prognosis. We also see a lot of change in the community empowerment. As I just shared with you an example where women have become empowered in terms of seeking their rights, we also see change in women and girls opening up. In many of these meetings where we have these adolescent girls, we realize at least the adolescent girls now know that they need to speak up about these issues. One of the examples is that we came across a girl who was about 15 years of age, and she was not menstruating. But she was very scared to talk about it, and she did not know whom to speak to. But when this kind of adolescent group meeting happened in her community, she came up to the health volunteer and raised this issue. The girl's mother was then informed, and then the girl was taken to the hospital. She was fine. It was just that she was anemic, and that's why she was not menstruating. So these are basic things. At least the girls are now opening up. Similarly for the women, and they're also demanding for sexual and reproductive rights. We have come across cases where girls have said no to the marriage when they feel that they're too young for it. So earlier they were just accepting, and they were not even speaking out. There is increased couple communication, because when we are working, tracking these pregnant women, there is this emphasis to speak to the spouse and also to the mother-in-laws, because it has been realized that whatever information we might give to the women converts very easily. But to get the desired outcome, it is very important that the mother-in-law and the husband also agree to the same. So there's greater participation of men in the maternal and child health, and as I already mentioned, the community has started demanding for quality health services. There is a great opportunity to scale up because India's slum population has almost doubled in the last 10 years from 2001 to 2011. 49% of Delhi's population and 53% of Mumbai's population is in slums. And we have about 1.4 lakh women pregnant in Delhi at any given time. So Child Survival India is proposing to scale up to 35 slums across 4 districts, reaching out to about 42,000 pregnant women and infants in the next 3 years. What will be the strategy for scale up? We will scale up through the existing community development organizations in those slums. We're also talking to the microfinance organizations who are going to take up, who are now willing to take up microfinance plus activities for their clients. And we're also talking about the existing community-based groups like the water user groups, the Mahila Panchayats, because we don't want to create new groups and we can use them as Swasthya Samoos. Child Survival India would be doing the training and monitoring. We will be using our existing sites as learning sites. We need to develop a robust MIS system when we scale up. The facilitator manuals and the standard operating procedures will be provided by CSI, and the networking and the advocacy would be done by us. This is our growth plan. 5,10,000 population to be covered by 2016, 42,000 women and infants to be reached, and there will be a growth in the staff numbers. The total budget, we have some commitment for the year 2013-14 and 14-15, none for 15-16, and our ask for the next, for the period 2013 to 16 is 2.52 crores. Cost per beneficiaries at the moment is 265, which is a very cost-effective model because we are working through the community groups. It's scalable, it is sustainable. This is our governing board. We have an eclectic group on our board, the senior management, I'm the president and the CEO, and we have doctors with us, doctors who have done work with WHO and United Nations, and a person who is our health advisor is fellowship in HIV medicine along with MD in community medicine. This is the program team. We have a director maternal and child health, we have program managers, we have an MIS executive, training and documentation people, and there at the base are the Swasthya Samoos members. We have 770 Swasthya Samoos members because they are the ones who are doing this outreach right in the community. People who have supported us till now, Save the Children, Paul Hamlin. We have worked with Gates Foundation for 7 years. Now the program has been transitioned. This is the summary. We have high infant and maternal mortality. Our solution is comprehensive continuum of care through community-based groups. It's an acceptable model because we work through community groups which are right there embedded in the community. So there is greater acceptance on the part of the community. There is strong focus on increasing the access and use of public health facilities and ensuring accountability from the public health system rather than creating our own service delivery model. The cost per beneficiary, as I already told you, is pretty low. We require support for expanding our model to 35 slums. Thank you.